Yeah, fire away. Any questions?
Hey, Greg, this is Cassandra.
Hey, Cassandra.
I have a question. It's a follow-up on my mother with her having the bronchiectasis, and I'm looking for my notes. I'm
Okay.
gonna get I'm gonna get some oils for her. And first of all, she said she thinks she would like some clove oil, so I'm gonna get that for
Okay.
something. It was some stuff we
Remind me, what's the issue? What's the condition?
So what she has, her initial issue is bronchiectasis, which is a condition, a constant infection
Right.
of the bronchial tubes. She had a series of pleurisy. Now, mind you, she's like 90 pounds and she never smoked. So this is obviously some other circumstances brought this on for years. But she had
How long
pleurisy.
ago was long was the pleurisy? How long ago?
Now the pleurisy has been in the last couple of years.
Okay.
Last year, she is using this vest that makes
Yeah.
it pump up and down to
Uh-huh.
move it around, and she's been better with that. She said the sodium chloride was making her sick, so she didn't use that with this particular vest.
Okay.
But here's what's interesting, and I'm gonna give you 3 things that she told me.
Okay.
She feels weakness in the legs, then her
Okay.
heart races, and extremely short of breath. I don't know exactly what that is, if that's part of the breathing, if it's part of something else. She went to her doctor. Her doctor tested her and said, "Oh, we're going to put you on thyroid medication, like, 0.25 mcg." So I
How's her
said,
digestion? How's her digestion?
not,
It
not,
was not
I
good.
don't think it's been great because she's always had digestive stuff where
Okay.
like I put on probiotics and stuff like that. But
Right.
she eats healthy. It's just she's got grief because of losing her second husband, being isolated. So there's definitely emotional issues in there.
What about like diarrhea, constipation?
She
Are those
wouldn't.
pretty regular?
She would not tell me.
Okay.
But I would imagine I would lean toward, knowing my mom having kind of a nervous stomach, I would lean toward maybe diarrhea or just not being able to hold food in.
Yeah. So this is what I would say, and this is we've talked about it in classes, but in the Western model, or the allopathic medicine model for the Western world, especially in the U.S., maybe not so much in Europe, but we really don't really assess the autonomic nervous system very much, and we don't really talk about like if it's not functioning well. And it is a source of like allergies. It's a source for it's a contributing factor. I shouldn't say it's like the main thing, but it is definitely a significant contributing factor. And it's just because it's more of a functional problem rather than when the doctor gives a diagnosis, it's not necessarily a functional problem. It's something has come to a head to the point where it has caused a condition. Where when you're dealing with things functionally, you're dealing with it like as it's turning into a condition or before it's a condition, or sometimes there's just these weird things that are causing issues, but they're not really a medical issue because they're not causing, a certified, condition. And so everything that you described kind of falls into that realm of like a functional issue. And, except for the prolonged periods of infection. I mean, that is a medical condition. And so the issue is most likely that she probably has poor vagal tone. Her autonomic nervous system is definitely off. I mean, everything that you're describing is plays the vagus nerve plays a role in all those parts, except for the weakness in the legs And that could just be that the nervous system's off. Sometimes when the nervous system's off, there can be weakness in the legs. There could actually even be this little thing where they kind of like sway around a little bit and they'll like drop to a knee, or they don't fall and collapse, like pass out, but they just kind of lose their balance or their footing. And so sometimes it's poor tone in the vagus nerve, and sometimes it's poor tone in some of the sympathetic nerves. And so the sympathetic meaning like your action nerves or your fight flight kind of nerves, activity type oriented nerves. And so when you're dealing with somebody, I mean, the Cadillac treatment for that is the Vital Center oils, like if you ran them through, but that's also a very involved treatment. And we just have to be really practical and say, most people aren't going to probably do that treatment. I know if I asked my mom to do it, she'd probably do one or two, and then that
Exactly.
would be it.
She wouldn't even take the
so,
look.
no, I mean, the general public, and I'd put most of my family in there. They would not do it, even if I gave them things to read and research, and they're just not going to do it, right? And so sometimes we have to do a thing where even when we're talking on these streams and stuff, sometimes I'm trying to calibrate the treatment based on what I think the person will probably do. Like, you know what I mean? Like you have to kind of go, how much can I get them to stretch and treat this? And because you could have this amazing treatment, but if they never even engage it, it doesn't really matter. The thing is you kind of go to them for where they're at, and then just try to help the best that you can. And then, if they start wanting to do more, get more involved, you can step it up a notch, definitely. But this is what I would do for your mom, just because I have, right off the bat, have a couple concerns. And so one is like kind of the balance between the autonomic nervous system. So the autonomic nervous system is the involuntary part of your nerves. So it's tied to your respiratory tract, it's tied to your gut, it's tied to the heart. It's tied to a bunch of processes. You don't think about something, but when they're agitated or they're not firing like they should to those particular areas, it throws the digestion off. It can cause tension in the respiratory tract, and definitely can cause palpitations, racing heart, arrhythmias, things like that. And so that you have a situation where all three are involved, that's pretty telling, And so the simplest thing to do would be to give her anise or anise.
Mhm.
You give her that internally, a couple of drops. If she won't do that, try to put it in like massage oil and rub it on her abdomen or something, but try to get it into the skin somehow. But if she'll take it internally, internal will probably be best. And so it helps to strengthen the nervous system, and it helps bring a balance to how the autonomic nervous system goes back and forth. Like it kind of balances out the unevenness of it, because like if you're in fight flight, you can't be in rest and repair. And if you're excessively in rest and repair, you start to have functional issues where getting it up and moving can cause like dizziness and can cause all kinds of issues. And so my guess is there's just really poor tone in the vagus nerve, which can happen over a period of time. It can happen with an incident. It could happen with allergies. It could happen with prolonged periods of stress. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why it could happen.
And all of that. It's been all of it.
Like life, it's just sometimes life happens. And so no need to figure out why it happened. I would just treat it. So an anise will help to regulate that. And then I would probably diffuse marjoram in the environment if she'll handle that. If not, you could get it on her skin, but I'd really prefer, if I'm just looking at the perfect therapeutic model, her inhaling it for long periods of a time. And it doesn't have to be in her face. Like, it could just be in the environment. That will pull her out of fight flight and will increase and improve the tone of the vagus nerve itself. And so marjorum's really good for that. Really, really super good for that. Then the thing with the lungs, I think the pleurisy is even though the pleurisy might be gone, that lining, when it gets inflamed like that, can still cause like prolonged issues. Like anytime there's inflammation in a particular area, the body has a hard time functioning normally, and so that the lungs are compromised, or the bronchioles are compromised, and that there was pleurisy, they almost go hand in hand sometimes. You're just dealing with inflammation like that. It shuts down lymph nodes, which is how your body would deal with inflammation and fight off infection. And so the very first thing that I would do is I wouldn't even look at it as an infectious issue. I would look at it as like a functional issue, and try to help the lungs just function better. You're basically trying to take some of the accumulations and the inflammation out of the lining of the lung, so that the lung functions better and is able to detoxify better and is able to fight off whatever it's going to fight off better. And then after that happens, then you can go in and do the anti-infectious, things that are going to help fight infection. So for the lungs, right off the bat, I would use cypress. Cypress is really good for dealing with pleurisy, even the after effects of pleurisy. And so you could do it topical, in some massage oil, rub it on her chest and her upper back. But if she can, I would give her a couple drops a day in water. Neither one, the anise or the cypress, don't really taste that bad. The cypress barely has a taste, and anise just tastes like black licorice. So
right.
Most people can tolerate both of those.
I cannot remember if she likes that or not, but just in case she doesn't like it.
Put it in massage oil and then rub it on her chest.
Massage oil. Okay.
Yeah. Or lotion or whatever she'll tolerate.
And because I'm not there, I'm going to have to send this, order this and have it sent to her, and then try to explain it to her. I told her to take the lobelia like you suggested, and she will not take that. But yet when I bring up something else, she's like, well, maybe you can get me some oils for Mother's Day. So this is my opportunity.
Okay. Well, if she's not going to take it internal, let us know, and
okay.
I'll make it into an ointment for you.
Okay. So we've got the anise, which we can take internally, 1 to 2 drops a day. I'm going to skip to number 3, the cypress, 1 to 2 drops a day in water, and diffuse the marjoram in the environment.
Right.
And those will, now with that anise, I didn't know whether that was fine, or the ANS support, or the
ANS would do it as well, but I was just trying to keep it simple. But that would also do it.
Well, which one? Because if I'm going to order,
I'd probably give her just the anise, just to try to balance out, because there's a couple of things going on where I almost try to start simpler sometimes. And just let's just keep it really simple. And ANS support is not very complicated, but we want to almost see how she reacts to just having the straight up anise and the cypress, and that will also kind of tell us the health of her, the vitality of her body, and how she's able to fight those off. I mean, it's pretty clear with what you've described what's going on with her. It's pretty clear the issues that she has, but then we also have to factor on what's her vitality, what's her immune system, what's her inflammation level, what's her, and so we go through and start treating, and we watch how she responds.
Okay, and I will tell her to do this for 60 days, 90 days?
She'll probably start seeing results within a week. sometimes even in the first couple of days. But like probably a 60 days just to balance out the body. It's my guess is the autonomic dysfunction has probably been there for a very long time. The pleurisy, that has, she probably had difficulties with respiratory issues prior to that.
She's miserable.
Yeah,
she's just absolutely miserable.
Pleurisy is amazingly uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's probably
it is such a painful condition. It's like every breath hurts.
And I'm going to do what I can remotely. And, and sometimes, like you said, we try to help people, but then at the same time, I can only, I want her to want to do it on her own. And I think she's shown a little, we'll see.
Yeah.
Thank you, Greg.
My pleasure. And, the other thing, as a therapist, you have to factor in too that, some of the older generations didn't grow up with things that were holistic. They just wanted to take a pill and have it go away. That was their medicine. And so some of that is going to be years of conditioning of just, that's the way they grew up. And so that's why, like, when I'm dealing with people of like that generation or whatever, I kind of have a different set of not rules, but just ways of operating, because you're not going to get them to do different stuff. So it's the best thing to do is just like function within what you can get them to do. And then, at some point when they start feeling better, try just to push the boundary a little bit. But even then, they'll only do so much. So it just is what it is. I mean, it's just years and years of conditioning, and, people who grow up with holistic practices have a different outlook, but they didn't have that exposure, and so you just you have to factor that in too.
Thank you.
Yeah, like my mom's like that, like she likes the idea of it and everything, but when it comes down to it, she goes back to what she knows. Just is what it is.
Someone asked, is there a remedy for tinnitus?
Tinnitus, not necessarily. Let's see. I don't think in my notes I have anything with oils. Tinnitus, a lot of times, is not in the ear. It's actually something up here. It's actually the way the brain is firing.
I think he's mentioned ginger lily.
Yeah, you can use things that are good for the brain. So ginger lily could probably work. Rosemary, pategrin, basil. As you're inhaling it, I'd even put awareness up on the brain. Linden blossom can work. Yeah. The other thing is, if it's truly an ear issue, you probably have inflammation like in the ear, and so you'd kind of fall back on things that are good for like allergies and things like that. So Neoli on the body is always good. Blue tansy, really super good for allergies. The blue tansy, I'd even take a couple drops internally. There's the allergy support, again, inhale or apply topically. But I'd honestly start with treating the brain. That's usually where I go first.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're sure welcome.
Do you know, my girlfriend's mother is elderly and she's on a CPAP, and she told me last night that her mother's body is not expelling the carbon dioxide. Have you ever heard of that?
Did she have COVID?
No, she didn't have COVID.
She didn't have COVID.
No.
She have emphysema or anything like that?
No, she never said her mother had emphysema. I just know she's on oxygen.
So she's not getting, honestly, I would probably treat that. Is that happening even with a CPAP machine?
Yeah, she said her mother went to the doctor today. Whatever it is with the carbon monoxide had a reading of 63. She said if it goes above that, then that's when she has to be hospitalized.
I mean, honestly, I would probably treat the bronchioles when that's happening. Sometimes the bronchioles go into such a spasm that the lungs have a hard time expelling air out. And, I don't know if there's a history of asthma or respiratory distress, lung history of bronchial infections or bronchitis. But the other one that I'd be really curious about would be if she's had a history of croup, which is like basically a higher form of bronchitis, like it's higher up the bronchioles. And so I would look at things that are really good for unwinding the bronchioles. And so again, going to hyssop could work. In a pinch, pine could work, pine or terebinth, but I would probably use hyssop first. Spruces definitely probably could be helpful, especially Sitka. One that is a bit expensive, but if you have it already kind of in your kit, is Melissa. Melissa is very good for unwinding the bronchioles. And there's another oil called Ami Visnaga. And sometimes they'll refer to it as pick tooth, like pick tooth. And it's just like an old slang word term that they use for it. But it's a very good smooth muscle relaxant. Like, so it helps to relax the muscles of the respiratory tract, which would include the bronchioles. And my guess, without really seeing her and looking at her and everything, based on what you said, and that she's on a CPAP and all that, I would definitely look at reducing tension in the bronchioles. There you don't need to follow a pattern or anything. You can just hold something in front of her nose and just have her take long, slow, deep breaths. Now, one of the ways that you can tell is like a real easy way to test for bronchial spasms is to inhale, like have them inhale really slow, like, through their nose, and then try to have them exhale and take even longer than the inhalation. So if it took 20 seconds to inhale, try to get them to exhale at a count of 30, right? And so what happens when you have bronchial spasms is you'll go, inhale, you'll, and then you go, okay, now exhale even slower, and they'll go, like, it just all comes out at once because they have no control over the bronchioles. And so you can run them through the oils. And then the other thing you can do is you can do the pursed lip breathing, which, you can do it with an oil, or you could just actually do the breathing, which is you have them inhale through their nose, and then they purse their lips together like you're trying to whistle, but it's more forceful, right? So you basically are making a little tiny space, and then you're forcing air through that tiny space. So you go, and you just have them do that like 4 or 5 times, and then relax, and then 4 or 5 times, and do that. You're manually opening up the bronchioles by going through and doing that. And I would definitely cross that one off the list to see if that can't bring her some relief. You know, you usually see it in asthmatics, you see it in people with allergies, you see it in people who have had prolonged periods of pain. You know, anything over 2 weeks, you're going to start having spasms in your bronchioles, especially if it's sharp pain. So it could be injuries, it could be prolonged periods of stress, it could be after a cold or flu, you know, and then it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And so I would treat that and definitely cross that one off your list, because that is the big red flag for not being able to get out, you know, the used up air.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let us know if you have any questions about that. Yeah, that sounds actually like it's getting serious. Other questions?
Yeah, let me just make sure. Quick question, Apology had asked, and we told him Cistus and the Palo Santo.
Mhm.
He doesn't have the Cistus, is there an alternative?
Bummer. See if he has spike time. Just the spike though. None of the other ones work.
No. No, spike note's different.
Okay, let me think about trying to do a different approach.
Is there a general protocol to use with essential oils that we can do on a daily basis to keep inflammation in check?
Say that again.
Is there a general protocol to use with essential oils that we can do on a daily basis to keep inflammation in check?
Okay, so yeah, keeping inflammation in check. That's actually a very good question. Couple of things you can do with essential oils. So let's take it down the rabbit hole a little bit. First off, one of your best things for reducing inflammation would be to use either black cumin or turmeric. You know, a couple of drops in water and then take it in internally. The other thing that you could do is you could take bay laurel, right, and apply it to all the joints in the body. You know, apply it with like a massage oil, or we're actually going to start releasing a medicated soap that is like a therapeutic grade soap that, you know, you basically would apply it to the joints in the body, like in the shower, and then stand there for a few minutes and then you can wash it off. So you could try that approach. You could take bay laurel and put about 20-25 drops of oil and, you know, a couple teaspoonfuls of soap, and then rub it on the armpits, the elbows, the hips, you know, hit the low back, the abdomen a little bit, you know, the knees, the ankles, and then let the steam just kind of do its job about opening up the pores, and inhale the bay laurel a little bit. And then after a few minutes, wash it off. That will keep the lymph nodes, will keep clearing out the lymph nodes and increase and improve your body's ability to fight inflammation. The other thing that I would do is I would probably put maybe 2 to 3 drops of Sylvester pine on your wrist, like on the pulse points, and then just rub it together. I would do this daily. And the reason with Sylvester pine, it's a little bit different than the other pines, is that it helps stimulate the production of cortisone in your body to help reduce like inflammation and joint issues and things like that. So it's utilizing the body's natural ability to produce a steroid compound. You know, it's not a steroid itself. It's getting the body to produce it, which is quite like much healthier. And it reduces like the achiness in the joints and things for a longer period of time. The other thing that I like to do is you could also take a drop or 2 of lemongrass in the water. Lemongrass is amazing for infectious conditions. It's amazing for allergic reactions. It's amazing for achy joints that's due to infection or inflammation. You know, usually a single dosage will wipe out the achy joints. You know, it's one of the things that I give people who have a condition where they're bedridden for long periods of time. It just takes all the achiness out of the joints and things. And so it's very good for the immune system. It's very good for fighting off any sort of infection, and it reduces inflammation in the soft tissue, the fascia, rather than just in the muscle or joint capsules. And so by going through and doing all of that, you're really hitting a lot of different areas, pretty substantial. Yeah. That's a good thing to be doing, by the way. We're trying to reduce inflammation, especially as we get older. We have more and more inflammation in our bodies as we age, and actually the aging process is an inflammatory condition. So
on that, what is the best oil to treat gum inflammation?
Gum inflammation, you have some choices. Like one of the things that helps to detoxify the gums, especially if they're like soft and spongy, is cypress. Like you could put 3 or 4 drops of cypress in a little bit of water and then rinse the mouth. I actually will even have people take several drops of cypress and just rub it all over the gums. It will firm up the gums and detoxify the gums. Basically, it stimulates lymphatic movement and accumulations. Then the other thing is myrrh is always good. But one of the ones that I like that we don't think about too often, and I had just mentioned it for something else, is bay laurel. Bay laurel is very good for cleaning up all the lymph nodes in the throat and the mouth. And it's super antibacterial. Like it is what you use to treat staph. It's what you use to treat strep. You know, just a lot of different bacterial type infectious conditions are very treatable with bay laurel. And so I would actually put that in mouthwash or, a gargle, and then rinse with that on a daily basis. Anytime there is a lot of issues with the gums, with inflammation or bleeding, also increase vitamin C in either in the diet, or if you're going to take a supplement, use quercetin. Quercetin is the crude vitamin C, and it's what you would use to treat like allergies and asthma and things like that. And so very, very helpful. A lot of times if you use quercetin and say you have bleeding gums, like when you brush your teeth, there's blood comes out, within a day or 2 of treatment, the bleeding usually will stop.
You guys can type in or unmute yourself if you have a question.
Yeah, those are all really good questions.
Hey, it's Cassandra, one more time. You brought up something when you talked about moving the lymph. My colleague got one of the shots for COVID and she's 24 years old. She's got pain in the armpit area and like up under. And I said, it sounded to me like, you know, it's a reaction clearly, and maybe the
Yeah.
best thing is to get some of that lymph moving. And I've got
Yeah.
a couple of little bottles of Baylaurel, and I'm just wondering if I could just maybe give her some of that tomorrow and have her
Yeah,
gargle.
have her like rub it like with massage oil or lotion in the area. You know, because that area can be a little sensitive, and you want to cover like a large surface area. And so I mean, you could put it in alcohol, but I would hesitate spraying alcohol on the armpit just because it most likely would probably burn a little bit.
Well,
The
not if
other
it's
thing that,
vodka.
what's that?
I said the
Not
vodka
if it's
doesn't
vodka.
burn.
Yeah, see, I haven't tried. So like, so if they're willing to do that. And then the other thing is give her a couple of drops of the lemongrass.
Okay.
You know,
we have
it's a
that.
lot of times it's an inflammatory response, but you know, inflammatory responses a lot of times are another way of saying like an allergic response, you know, because that's what an allergic response is. It's an inflammatory response. And so, you know,
You'll
you get
laugh. We already have the lemongrass in a bottle at work, and that's what we use.
perfect. Yeah,
So I'll just tell her
yeah.
to keep using
Yeah.
that.
Just
and I'll
have her,
bring them.
and a lot of times it's like a dosage or two. I mean, it's really
Okay.
not that much. And we've consistently been using that for people, and it's the simplest way to treat it.
Okay.
You know, if they won't take oils, sometimes I just have them take a Benadryl, and it will knock it out usually.
Oh, and she
Yeah.
had a headache too. She kept waking up with a headache.
Yeah.
I didn't think that. I'll say that. I
Yeah.
think she was going to go to the doctor or at least report it. But in the meantime, I'll share this.
They probably won't do a whole bunch. I mean,
I
the symptoms are just kind of being considered as part of the vaccine and stuff, and so it's, you know, within usually about 48 72 hours it resolves itself usually. But I've several cases that it's been going on longer and it's just not resolving, and so you know, it just needs a little extra help.
But the lemongrass, we can start there, and we can even add in the Baylaurel if necessary or able. Okay.
You could give her Baylaurel internally, or you could, you know, do them separately.
Okay.
But you can give her even the Baylaurel internally. But I would definitely apply Baylaurel, like you said, to the area.
Okay.
You know, like treating the lymph nodes, it's a lifelong thing. It's not like, oh, I got them to a place where they're good. You know, life happens, and you just got to keep clearing them out and clearing them out and clearing them out. And so, you know, that's why we've been doing experiments here with like making like a medicated soap, so that it's like, you know, it's got to be a way that it's not always like I got to spend 3 hours doing therapy every day. You know, it's like trying to integrate it into normal everyday you know, processes, so that you know, you can take your shower and be doing therapy on yourself all at once. Or, you know, we're making these like little balms and things where, you know, right before work you can just boom 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 and be off and going. And so we have a bunch of ongoing experiments to try to integrate things into people's normal everyday life. And Baylaurel is really good in the shower. Like it is. I mean, other than like putting the massage oils and ointments like on the joints itself, it's probably the second best way to do it, like a shower or a bath. And it hits all the lymph nodes. I mean, it's so good for the lymphatic system. So anytime the lymph nodes get too congested, you're prone to infection, inflammation, allergies. You know, it's just so many things can go wrong.
So I'm guessing this has to be kind of common if all these millions of people, you know, getting shots. I mean, she can't be the only one that's having that.
I'll say this: I've treated way more reactions to vaccinations than I treated COVID itself.
That's what I figured.
Like 5 to 1, like 5 to 1. And I'm not even doing treatments like I used to. Like, you know, it's just people reaching out and asking for, you know, a protocol or something, and it's almost always the vaccine. You know, it's just super, super common.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And
And Letty, your hand's raised.
Hey, Miss Letty.
Hi, Greg. How are you doing? And Sam. How are you doing? Okay, so I have a really quick question. When you, okay, when someone has like narcissistic behaviors or like borderline narcissistic, I know you had mentioned in the past, like, you know, that people really, it's conditioning, right? Because we're not born like that. But when somebody kind of is going in that direction, would that just be like cleaning their front and back solar plexus? Or is it something more complicated?
It's a basic chakra issue.
Oh,
It's
okay.
yeah. So like if you look at it from a point of view of yeah, like the basic chakra, and clean the arms and the legs, and then also you could clean the brain. Like the brain, you could energize delicate regeneration. You know, if you're doing it with healing. The basic, just clean it up. Just like lots of green, lots of orange. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We're actually I wasn't going to use this terminology, but one of the things that we're going to do is you know, something like that is a combination of what they call in psychology of these like defense mechanisms, right? And there's different levels or grades of defense mechanisms. You know, in esoteric circles, we would say being conductive, right? But in psychological terms, somebody not being receptive to the higher soul manifests as these issues with relating with their environment. And when you start to have something like a personality disorder, so a person can be narcissistic but not necessarily have a personality disorder, right? But if you have enough of these defense mechanisms that come together, they eventually will turn into a personality disorder. And so everybody has some to a certain degree, but you know, it's the ones who are over the top with it all that really kind of end up like, it's almost like it gets cultivated a little bit. You know, like their game with the environment, whatever it is, their strategy is just working for them on some level, and it just ends up over a period of time turning into a personality disorder. And so once that happens, it's really kind of almost, I don't want to say impossible to treat, but it's very hard to treat. But it's because it's tied to a lot of brainwave activity. And so the brainwave and the limbic, some of the limbic functions. And so, you know, we've been going down this rabbit hole of brainwaves and vital centers. And, you know, next week we're going to start doing the different aspects of the heart with the vital centers. And one of the things that we're going to do at some point is it's a combination of you're using a vital center or two with a particular brainwave, and you follow these particular patterns, and it just I have like it mapped out, you know, there's like 40 or 50 different, I have to go back and count them. You know, I'm using the psychological roadmap, you know, there are parameters to go through and unwind these things, but you basically just systematically go through and unwind the personality components. And it's really a lot of work on the basic chakra and a lot of work on the brain. And, you know, you're trying to shift the brain. Now, like if you take a step back, you know, we've been talking about this a lot of different ways through the different classes. And, you know, we have that class coming up in a little bit with Astara, where we're doing the crystal class. And this is the really interesting thing, is that there's these like 7 states of, you could call them like consciousness of sorts, or like how you kind of process things, right? And they're actually tied to planetary energies, right? So some of this is tied to what might be in a person's chart, or it might be just certain tendencies drawing a certain kind of energy. All of these affect the endocrine glands. And so the 7 points of the star are really us winding through these different phases. And so one is associated with lower emotions, one is associated with higher emotions, one is associated with the instinctive mind, one is the critical mind, the next is the strategic mind, and then one is the intuitive mind. And then eventually it's the universal mind, which is like when a person starts to become more aware of like God and the higher soul, like in their conscious mind and in the unconsciousness. And so a lot of times when we're looking at the average person, they're stuck in usually either the lower emotions and or the instinctive mind. And so, you know, that's why sometimes when somebody will ask a question, I'll give a particular answer, and then somebody else asks me the same question and I'll give a little bit of a different answer. It's because of like where that person's at. You know, it's, and like no judgment about it. It's like we've all been through the different pieces, but you know, you almost have to evaluate what state of awareness a person's in, because if they're stuck in, say, the lower emotions, the lower emotions are being stuck there. It's all about opposition. You know, there's just constantly, it's not even conflict, it's just everything is at odds with each other, right? Then the higher emotions, it's the issue is conflict. You know, that's why like in the Christian tradition, it's love your neighbor as yourself, right? You're literally going from lower emotions to higher emotions. Lower emotions are an eye for an eye. Higher emotions are love your neighbor as yourself, right? Or loving kindness. So you're shifting out of the lower emotion and you're starting to work up into the higher emotion, which then starts to impact the instinctive mind. And the instinctive mind is it's tied to like thinking and thought processes that are stimulated by your physiology or a repetitive pattern. Basically, it's another way of saying your mind doesn't really process what's happening. You just start thinking it. Like you don't like change your mind. It's just like roll the tape. You know, here we go. Roll the tape. Roll the tape. Roll the tape. And so these 3 are really key, because like people's like defense mechanisms and things, they're all a byproduct of these 3. After that, the 4 after that, different things happen, but you can almost always go into what is happening psychologically to those 3 pieces. You know, your stresses, your fears, your traumas, it all comes from these 3 pieces or these 3 places, you know. And so, you know, what we're talking about doing is laying this out. This isn't something I came up with, by the way. This is based on it's what all the classes are based on, basically. It's based on old alchemical process. And so, and the symbol for the alchemical process is a 7-pointed star with a bright light in the middle, not necessarily the lotus, but just a bright light. And so when you're wanting to unwind these three, you can do a little bit of psychotherapy when it comes to those three states. So first you would be in the lower emotions, you would treat and just seek out like opposition, right? Opposition. And then higher emotions, it's conflict. And then for the instinctive mind, it's desire. It's a desire. For the critical mind, it's repetition. Just you keep repeating whatever you've been doing. And so that a lot of times allows for the stresses, the traumas, the fears, the conditioning, that allows it to come out. And so, we've actually, we've done a class that I didn't talk about it the way I'm talking about it right now, but we've actually done a class that actually somewhat addressed this, and it was the planetary cycles. The planetary cycles is tied to what we're talking about, because the influence of the planets has a huge impact on your endocrine system. And so the lower emotions are the sun, the higher emotions are the moon, the instinctive mind is tied to Mars, which is desire. And so you work your way up to pull, try pulling yourself out of these lower states of consciousness. And then the reverse is you start to bring down the spiritual aspects associated with these planets, which would be represented by the Greek gods of old, but you could do it in different ways. And so as you bring it down, it's referred to, the technique is the descending spheres of heaven. And so when you do that, the level or degree of connection of the higher soul to the three vehicles, the physical body, emotional body, mental body, is substantial. Oh my God, it's substantial. It just basically, kind of changes the person, but it's so intense that you really have to do it in a lot of baby steps, because the shift is really intense. And so, at first, we could do the protocol if you're going to do it with oils. We could do the protocol for desire. The thing with desire, it's for the instinctive mind. It helps to reset the adrenals. So I mean, there's a super practical reason to do it. You have a psychological reason for the thought processes that are associated with it. The instinctive mind is always reacting to sensory information and not really thinking out what's going to happen. You're not even really thinking of details, you're just reacting. So if you think about it, haven't you ever had a conversation with somebody where before you even finish the sentence, they're already pushing back at you? Like they're not even waiting, they're already just reacting. They didn't even process the information. That is lower emotions, and that is instinctive mind. Like they're just stuck there. And so usually we'd start with the planet, and then you'd work with the archangel, but then you go through and you reset the gland associated with that state of awareness. And so in the old days, when they would talk about the 7 chakras, they were really not talking so much about the chakras, they were actually talking more about the glands. And so if you read some of the old books, it was more about the glands than it was about the energy centers. They would talk about the energy centers, but a lot more education was being done on the glands themselves. And so the glands are tied to these states of consciousness and awareness. And if you look at it from the point of view of modern science, what you would call the mind for the average person is basically the endocrine system functioning through the nervous system or functioning through the brain. Like that is really what makes up a lot of people's like thought processes. And so by going through and treating the endocrine system, you're addressing the nervous system, but as you go through and you treat the endocrine system, you start to make very big changes in the person's thought processes. It's tough because the glands communicate with each other. They're kind of wired into this way of functioning, and it takes a lot to shift them out of it. And part of it is there's an external influence as well, which is, you know, planetary influences. And so you don't have to be in alignment with the stars to treat this, but you look at what the planet, when you're in harmony with that planet, when you've transmuted or transformed what that planet represents, then the gland functions appropriately. Like, right? So if you have worked through the issues with opposition, then the gland functions appropriately. If you work through issues with conflict, it functions appropriately. You work through your issues with desire, then the gland functions appropriately. And it doesn't mean that you suppress desire, right? It just means you are able to regulate it, and motivations aren't just about desires. And so, yeah, it's probably way more information than you wanted. It just dawned on me. I just went on some big tangent. Oh, well.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, you probably wanted a very straightforward, simple answer, but it's an interesting thing because, you know, the kind of thing that you're talking about, it's not how we think about psychology, like, oh, it's stress or it's fear or it's whatever. It's a much deeper layer, and it's a much bigger picture. It's really not that complicated, but it's like you have to put on a different kind of glasses. Like, you know, you're used to looking at something through eyeglasses when you got to go up, got to switch to the binoculars. You know, I got to look at things from a different perspective. And when you just shift the perspective, you go, oh, that's what it is. That's why I haven't talked about the endocrine system very much. Is it's complicated, but it's not. But just thinking about it from the point of view of symptom-oriented treatment, it's really hard to treat that way. But when you step back and you look at it as this big kind of like merry-go-round, where you're just like, okay, I got to treat that particular gland, but there's all these other things going on. How do I do it? You know, it's very doable. You know, it's just it's a different perspective, and it's not. In a lot of therapeutic approaches, you know, because it's very esoteric. It's very super esoteric. But I'll run you through how to treat the instinctive mind, like right now. I don't mind.
I think that sounds great. We did have a couple clarifying questions.
Yeah, let's
on
go
what
ahead.
earlier
Let's deal with the
things.
clarifying question. First of all, Letty, did I answer your question kind of? I know I went on a long-winded thing there.
No, yes, you did. It's because, like, you know, as an educator, you know, we're around a bunch of people, so you see a bunch of different personalities. But then not only myself, like my friend that works at a different school, you know, and like her principal is being very like narcissistic and passive aggressive with her, and it's making like her working environment, like now it's making it like uncomfortable. So I just thought if I go in and clean the principal's basic, if that would help out, type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, like issues with with people in authority, that is a big issue. You know, a narcissistic person in authority it doesn't mean everybody in authority is that way, but to be in a position of authority and like not be looking at yourself or like question yourself, or I don't want to say being hard on yourself, but like, you know, holding yourself to the fire a little bit. It would be easy to go there. It would be really, really super easy to go there. And most people are not looking at you know, looking at things that way. You know, like we were doing something the other day, it was for Astara, and something happened, and I was like, yeah, we could get upset at that person, but I was the one that made the decision, and I'm the one that put that in motion. I can't get mad at them that was just the end result. Like, really, the issue is me, not that person. You know, 10 years ago, I don't know that I could have come to that. But you know, being older and everything, I was like, of course, that was just the end result of decisions I've made. And so, you know, you have to be very clear on like kind of who you are. And like 10 years ago, I don't know that I could have done it, to be honest with you. You know, so sometimes people are in situations that maybe they're not ready for or wired for. Job still needs to get done, but you know, they just might not do it the way it needs to be done.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think they're asking about the planet. I could be wrong, but the lower emotions are associated with.
It's the sun.
And if that's not what you were asking, just type in or unmute yourself.
Opposition, you said also.
Yeah, the byproduct is opposition, but lower emotions are the sun. The higher emotions are the moon.
Which books mention the glands?
It's in some of the Astara writings. It's in an Alice Bailey book. And then there's some old books with really pretty pictures that are very, very old that I'd have to go look up. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I want to say Ledbetter maybe did one, but there's some really old books that I draw upon. I'd have to go look the books up.
And then back to the bay laurel with the gum situation, you had mentioned making the mouthwash or gargle. Is that the same as the cypress, 3 to 4 drops, or how much?
Yeah, the cypress. Yeah, I probably do about 3 or 4 drops. I mean,
For the bay
I
laurel?
yeah, I do the same for bay laurel. I mean, for mouthwashes, I tend to not make them super gentle. Like I kind of go at it. Your mouth is really one of the dirtiest places on the body. Your mouth and your feet, and so you know, I'll have people rub the cypress on their gums, and the bay laurel, you know, have them, you know, really swish it around their mouth and then tip the head back and really kind of gargle. One of the things that I also had people do, this is many years ago, but take a drop or two of like the bay laurel and then stick their finger back and rub it on the back of their tongue. And that way it kind of gets inhaled and goes up into the sinuses, but you're also hitting that back part of your throat a little bit. Not everybody likes doing that, so I usually don't say it just to be saying it. If a person can handle it, then have them do it, and if not, it's just have them gargle. Yeah.
And that looks like you clarified, explained.
Okay.
We're good.
Let's do the adrenals. Okay, so right off the bat, this is going back to Letty. Right off the bat, you would follow a somewhat different pattern that's in the planetary booklet, but you would do Mars first, and then you would do the Archangel Kamiel after that. And since we're here, let's just skip over that part, but you can go back and it would be the same pattern we're about to do, but we're going to go through and treat the adrenals. And by treating the adrenals, you're actually tempering the negative side effect of the instinctive mind, which is for here, desire. Okay, so the very first thing you're going to need is cedar, any form of cedar. Thuja would work, arborvitae would work, but cedar is an A+ choice. Okay, so notice how you feel. Think of a couple of situations in your life. It doesn't matter if they're good or bad. Just think of some situations. You want to do this too, or we can do it later? See how it feels.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah. We can also do it. Okay, so begin inhaling. Your awareness is on the front solar plexus. You're taking long, slow, deep breaths. Okay, this is kind of fun. We're doing this tonight.
Mhm. If someone has Mars, would they use Mars or is Cedar?
No, for here we're doing cedar, but if you had Mars and Cameo, you can do this at the end or at the beginning, do Mars and then Cameo, same pattern that we're doing. We're going to be going through several oils, so. This is not, I guess what I'm saying, this is not a replacement for Mars and Cameo. This is actually an add-on. So you're still on the front solar plexus. Now move to your back solar plexus, your mid-back area. Then down to your Mingmen, which is opposite your navel on the back side of your navel on your spine. Go to your kidneys. To the bottom of your tailbone, the basic chakra. And then between your eyebrows, the ajna. I just sent you something. And then just be still, keep your eyes closed, just be still. Okay, we're going to do the same oil again. Begin inhaling. Your awareness is on your front solar plexus. Move your awareness to the back solar plexus. The Ming Men, opposite your navel on the low spine. The kidneys. The bottom of the tailbone or the basic chakra. And see where we're the tailbone.
Mhm.
Basic. The ajna between the eyebrows. Okay, just be still, be aware, keep your eyes closed. Now, pull out your hyssop. Any form of hyssop. The one that wouldn't work would be Solomon's hyssop, but any of the other hyssops will work. Begin inhaling. Your awareness is on the front solar plexus. The Ming Men, the low back area. Your kidneys. The bottom of your tailbone, the basic chakra. In the area between your eyebrows, the ajna. Just be still. Keep your eyes closed. Just be still. Let it incubate. Again, same oil, hiss up. Begin inhaling. Your awareness is on the front solar plexus. Go to your back solar plexus. Down to the Mingmen. The kidneys. The bottom of the tailbone, the basic chakra. And the ajna, the area between the eyebrows. Okay, be still. Now let's reach for the next one, and that is going to be sage, some form of sage. For now, let's just say any sage. You can even include clary if you wanted. Begin inhaling. Your awareness is on the front solar plexus. Move your awareness to the back solar plexus. Your awareness is on the Ming Men, the low back area, opposite the navel. Your kidneys. your basic chakra, the bottom of your tailbone. We're at the kidney. Okay, your awareness is on the basic chakra, the bottom of the tailbone. And then the area between your eyebrows, the ajna. Just be still, be aware. Again, begin inhaling your awareness, same oil, front solar plexus. Your back solar plexus. The Ming Men. opposite the navel on the back side. All right, and then- Your awareness is on the kidney. The bottom of the tailbone, the basic chakra. And the ajna, the area between the eyebrows. Just be still, be aware. Okay, we're going to do one more, and that's galbanum. If you don't have galbanum, frankincense would work. But galbanum is by far the first choice. Okay, so get your galbanum. Begin inhaling. Your awareness is on your front solar plexus. Is this making you feel? Yeah. This kind of makes you feel like relaxed and strong all at the same time. You know? Your back solar plexus. Your Ming Men, opposite your navel on the back side. The kidneys? The basic, the bottom of the tailbone. The ajna, the area between the eyebrows. Just be still, be aware, just let go for a moment. Again, the same oil. Begin inhaling. Your awareness is on the front solar plexus. Your back solar plexus. Your Ming Men, opposite your navel on the back side. Your kidneys. The bottom of your tailbone. The area between your eyebrows, the ajna. Just be still. Notice how you feel. Notice your body, your emotions, your mind. Think about the couple of things that you thought about before we started. How's all that feeling? How's that feeling for you? But yeah, Samantha said it knocked her out in a good way. So normally with this one, we would actually go through and use the pain relief for psychogenic pain relief and do the same pattern again. The Mars and the Archangel Kamiel would be before we did all this, but those four steps, those 4 oils stand on their own as therapy for the adrenals. The thing that's interesting about treating the instinctive mind, it's actually one of the tougher ones to treat because so much of our instinctive mind is tied to pain-oriented thinking, avoiding it, managing it, dealing with it, trying to get away from it, whatever it is. It's tied to a lot of strategies on managing like pain and not just physical pain, but also psychological pain. And so it's one of the tougher ones to treat. And when somebody's really locked up in one of the particular like spheres, I guess you could call them, it's hard to get them to shift to other things because they're so entangled in one of the spheres. And so when somebody has pain-related thinking, you could do all the therapy you want, but you're still dealing with pain-related thinking. My guess is it's what's his name does the pain body. What's his name? Does the pain body thing?
Oh, or
Totally. Yeah, Tolle. Yeah, it's my guess is this is what he's tapping into is the sphere of the instinctive mind. When he's talking about the pain body getting engaged. In Buddhism, sometimes they'll refer to the dream body, which is one of the higher bodies. Most likely the intuitive mind. But anyway, we still have a few minutes. You have some experiences, and Letty, did this kind of give you some fuel for thought or a therapy approach? Or just by going through and doing this, you're treating the adrenals, and you're already treating the aspect of desire, the negative aspect of desire.
people want to make sure this same pattern for
for all the way
Mars.
through.
Yeah.
Same for Mars, same for the angel, same for psychogenic pain. All the different pains impact the instinctive mind, but for this particular pattern, it's the psychogenic pain.
Would any of the brainwave oils or patterns be helpful after this?
Not for what we're doing. They could be good for other things, but that opens up another ball of wax. We are going to go down that road, by the way, though.
And just to clarify, do Mars, then the angel first before
Right.
those four?
Mars first, then the angel, then these four, and then the very last thing that mop up the floors is the pain relief - psychogenic. Yeah, it will make you like kind of calmer. It will make you stronger. And you'll notice that like your thinking and thought processes change. Like you're thinking in a more cognitive way. Like it's less reactionary.
And someone who had just come in right after we start the process asked, what does this process address?
Yeah, it's probably best to go back through and listen to the recording, but we're talking about how, you know, like in a nutshell, how basically we're looking at endocrine function, but then we're looking at the different spheres or different types of awareness or consciousness. And so the first being associated with lower emotions, and the difficulty there is opposition, then higher emotions, and the difficulty there is conflict. And then here is the instinctive mind, and the difficulty here is, guys, drew a blank. Oh, desire. Desire. Yeah, I was like, bleh. I was thinking about some of the higher ones as we were doing the process, and my mind was somewhere else. So, but so you're like, for example, there's like a certain kind of agitation that keeps you in that state. Like, so if you're in that state of always being in the instinctive mind, even when you go through and you do like, say, energy work, and you're trying to pull off certain types of stress or thought forms, it actually doesn't allow for too much to come off because you're stuck in that state. It's too intertwined. And so as you start to shift this state of awareness, after that, things just start to float out of you because you're releasing a kind of agitation. The agitation is not content driven. It is just, you know, exposure, just like allergies. It's an exposure, right? And so when you go through and you shift the way of thinking, it affects the endocrine glands. It affects how you process the environment. It increases the ability to turn inward. And eventually, as you work through all the steps, you start to bring down the spiritual energy, and it's highly, highly, highly activating to the pineal and the blue pearl, the mental permanent seed, and is very physicalizing of spiritual energy. When that starts to happen, you are literally breaking patterns that you would take with you when you passed. I mean, you're basically shedding thought patterns, you know. And at some point, when a practitioner becomes, you know, relatively developed, you know, we have to shed this kind of thought form of sorts that we've generated through several incarnations. And so this is actually tied to that process.
I'm so sorry, guys, for those of you we didn't get maybe a question or two. Greg actually has to be gone.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have a meeting after this. Like my meetings are very regimented, so I apologize.
But thank you for joining us today. This was recorded, and
Yeah, so I'm sorry I didn't get to answer the question very, very well, but go back and listen to, I went on some rant for about 10 or 15 minutes. Letty asked me a question, and it's a good explanation there. We are going to be talking about it in more depth in the Astara Crystal class, but it's things that we always are talking about with classes. You know, we're always talking about these pieces. And so it's just maybe like a little bit bigger overview of what we're talking about. And so we are going to be talking about it more in the Time Prana classes as well. We have a study group coming up. When is that? The 8th, May 8th. The study group.
oh yeah,
Yeah, we have a free 9 to 6 study group on allergies and other things on May 8th. And then the end of the month, the 29th and 30th, I believe, is going to be a retreat weekend. So a free retreat weekend. So in the retreat weekend, I'm probably going to go in quite in depth in this process that we're talking about. Hadn't planned on it, but you can blame it on Letty. So Good question.
All right, bye, guys.
Okay, you guys, love you. I'll talk to you soon.